Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. We are inside my nursery. I want to show you why I made this nursery and what's growing in this bed. So let's go. This nursery is located on the south side of my house. It is on the right side of my driveway. The size of this bed is approximately 30 feet by 50 feet in dimension. I created this because I had a bunch of plants that I was dividing in my yard, and also I had plants that I winter sowed and I thinned them out. I needed to find a place or a home for them. So I ended up making basically a nursery in my yard. And I ended up using a lot of pots that I already had on hand. I also bought some on Amazon. I got them really cheap. They're not the type of pots that will last for years. It's just a temporary place for the plants to live in until I plant these certain plants in my yard or I sell the certain plants. I wanted to make this bed on a very low budget. And so I ended up using two main things to make this bed. I used some free dirt that was available in our town, and I also used composted horse manure that I can find readily in my area. So when it comes to these plants, some of these plants are going to go in my landscape. I just didn't know where I wanted to put them at the time when I either bought them or got them from a friend. So I'm going to be using some of these plants in my own landscape. I'm also giving some of these plants to some friends and family members. And then finally, I will be selling these plants. I've been putting some advertisements on Facebook Marketplace as well as on Craigslist. And the general pricing is between $3 to $6. $3 for a 3-inch pot with just one or two plants in it, and $6 for maybe a 4 to 5-inch pot that's full of plants. It might have 5 or 6 plants in it. And if you can believe it, in about 2 weeks, I've already made $250. So I think that's pretty good money. I am using the money to offset some of the costs associated with gardening. Even though I garden on a budget, gardening still costs money. Maybe I want to buy one specific plant, even if it's on the clearance rack, it costs me money. Or maybe I need to buy peat moss to make my own potting mix. Certain things I still need to spend money on, even the pots that I buy for this project. So I'm using that money to just offset the costs of what's associated with gardening. And one big cost is electricity. I have my grow lights that I run probably 5 months out of the year. That can get very expensive. So all this money that I'm collecting is going to be to offset the costs for basically my gardening hobby. I want to point out some of the plants that I have a lot of in this bed. This is a yarrow that I got from my yard. I've divided it up. These are sea holly that I winter sowed last year. And so for being 1 year old, they look pretty good. And also over here are different colored columbine that either I collected the seeds from my yard or I bought the seeds. And those were also winter sown last year. So for being 1 year old seedlings, they look really good. And you can see some of them are already budded up and blooming. When I list these on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, I like to show what the plant looks like right now, but then what the plant will look like when it's mature and blooming. Over here, this is betony or stachys. I have that plant in my yard. I collected the seeds and I winter sowed that. Over here, I love this plant. This is great for shade. It's a nice woodland plant, and I have plenty of shade in my yard. This is called Jacob's Ladder, and I had this plant somewhere in my yard. I just divided it into a bunch of pieces, so I'm planting it around my yard now. These are some heucheras that I had in my yard that I've divided, and some iris. I believe I bought this from someone. It might be a yellow color iris, which I'm excited about. I don't have a lot of yellow in my yard for when it comes to iris. Over here, I have some dianthus, and you can see this one is actually budded up pretty soon. I'd say in the next 2 weeks, some of this dianthus should be blooming. There's definitely spotty growth. Last year, all these pots had plants in them. So I'll just have to see what comes up, what doesn't. I think it's pretty good percentage, though, of plants that did come up. One thing I want to point out, these columbine here look a lot smaller than the other columbine that I showed you. And the simple reason is when I thin them out of the winter sown jugs, I clearly got to the bigger plants first, and by the end of the season, I was still thinning out and got to these smaller ones. That's why some are smaller and some are bigger when it comes to my plants. Over here, I have some blue fescue. I had that in my yard already, and I just thinned it out. That's actually been very popular. People really like the blue fescue. Some other plants that are in here, and yes, there are weeds. We're trying to just keep the weeds down by using a hoe. This over here is Rudbeckia, and it's a black-eyed Susan that I had in my yard, and I've just thinned it out. And what's nice is that they overwintered in the pots. So it was a nice way to heal the plants over for the winter, and I can easily water all these plants using a sprinkler, which is nice. Over here, look at this beautiful color. So this is a type of coral bells. It's a heuchera, and I don't know the variety, but it was in my yard already, and I thinned it out. So nice, a lot of nice pieces there. And then over here is periwinkle, and that is a nice ground cover. And you can see that it is already blooming. Down this way are some larger pieces of sea holly, and I have a lot of that over here. It's really nice. Again, if you're making a bed and you want to do maybe 5 or 8 or 10 plants, you have nice small pots and you can just place them where you want, and there's your drift. Over here are some foxglove that I started from seed in my using the winter sowing method last winter, and they did not bloom last year. They should be blooming this year, which will be really nice. And then this plant over here has a nice grassy texture to it, called spiderwort. Has a nice purple blossom to it. This area looks sparse, but one thing to keep in mind is here in New Hampshire, it's still quite cold. I think tomorrow night's supposed to be 31 degrees. So the perennials are still waking up. So I'm not going to say perennials are dead when I see the pots are empty. I'm almost positive in this row here is a type of coreopsis. I'm almost sure it's the moonbeam coreopsis. So that's why there's just weeds and nothing else coming up in these pots. And then over here, we have some more of the dianthus. Same thing with this row. I'm, I'm almost positive with this row. There's some perennials in here that just haven't come up yet. Over here is beautyberry, and this was kind of my experiment from I grew the seeds indoors under my grow lights. They sprouted, and this was the first winter they've been in these pots. So clearly they did not die. So that tells me they're hardy in this zone, which is wonderful. So these will be going out in my landscape. I gave some to my sister-in-law, and I'm going to give some to my friend, the friend who gave me the seeds. This plant over here was winter sown 2 years ago. So this was the first winter that they survived in the ground. And this is a coreopsis. These over here are lady's mantle. I have it in my landscape, and I had little teeny little seedlings. I pricked them out in the spring. I put them in pots. I grew them on, and now look how big they are. Here's some more of the foxglove that I winter sowed 2 winters ago. So they should bloom this year. And then over here are some Shasta daisy. It looks like they're just starting to bud up. And I winter sowed these 2 years ago. So keep in mind, again, these have been in the ground for 1 winter. Down over here is some more sea holly that I winter sowed 2 years ago. Look how huge they are. Again, there's some smaller sea holly because I didn't get to pricking them out of their milk jugs until later in the season. And then there's some bigger ones that I got to first. So when it comes to selling my plants, I clearly try to sell the bigger plants first. Obviously, that's what people want anyway. I have a small path of wood chips here, and we had some trees cut down a few years ago, and they gave us some wood chips. We're going to have more trees cut down in another week or two, and I asked for another pile of wood chips. What I'm planning on doing is putting the wood chips in between each of the rows to help cut down on the weed pressure that we're facing. Here's some echinacea or coneflower, and I honestly don't know if these were from the winter sown jugs from 2 years ago or from plants that I had in my yard. If they're purple, they most likely were from plants in my yard, but if they're a different color, like a specialty color, then most likely I winter sowed those. So I'll find out. I'm not selling any of my coneflower. I want to wait and see what colors they are first. These pots over here are just pots that I have, that I had from my own buying plants or from getting from friends. But I do make it clear to people when I sell my plants that just because there's a label on them doesn't mean it came from that distributor. Over here are some Asiatic lilies, and some of them I got from my sister-in-law's and some were from my own yard. So I'll find out once they're blooming. So here's a whole row of what looks like nothing came up or survived. But I was looking carefully, and these don't look like weeds. I'm almost positive these were winter sown Gaillardia plants from 2 years ago. And so it looks like they're just slow to come up. Again, I'm just going to give it time and wait and see what survived, what doesn't. I'm not going to give up on my plants just yet. Some more dianthus over here. Here's some more of the lady's mantle. Look how pretty the water droplets are on the lady mantle leaves. That's one of the things that the plant is known for, is how beautiful the water droplets look on that plant. Over here are more echinacea or coneflower. So over here is a banana daiquiri GM. I got it from Lowe's last year. It was marked down to $2. It was one pot. And what I did right away was I divided it. And I got, let's count it together. And I actually gave some to my sister-in-law already. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 18 plants, and I think I probably gave 3 to my sister-in-law, which is not a bad deal for $2. And you can see this one's already budded up. It's going to be really pretty. I had winter sown verbascum, and it looks like I have 2 plants here. One definitely looks really big, and then a small one over here. And I also had winter sown some delphinium. I usually have a hard time growing those, so I'm really glad that I have a couple of plants. And I also winter sowed this plant, which is called Centaurea. I'm pretty sure I'll put it up on the screen what the proper name is. Down over here is a clematis or clematis that I had bought bare root. So I'm not sure about the color, but I need to get that in the landscape. And this is called wood phlox. I had it in my yard in one spot. I didn't really like where it was. So I divided it up, put it in pots. So I'm going to try to find a nice place for it now. But I love it because I have creeping phlox and I have tall summer phlox, but I like the spring, taller wood phlox as well. This over here is a plant. Whenever I buy plants, they were marked down on clearance. It's the Magic Show Pink Potion Veronica. So right when I bought it, I divided it up. So I have 3 of those. And then over here, these are my plants. These are not for sale. So this is like my own little holding bed. This is a Georgia Pink Heuchera that was marked down at either Home Depot or Lowe's. I divided that into 2 plants. Some mini boxwood that I had bought and divided up. This looks like a gooseneck loosestrife that I bought from a backyard nursery. So it looks like I have some plants of those that I divided. And then this I got from a backyard nursery. I love going to backyard nurseries because just like mine, their prices are very reasonable. This is a white balloon flower. I collected a ton of seeds from this plant and I winter sowed them. So I did show them in a recent video of what they look like. And then I winter sowed this last year. This is a lupin. This is a poppy that I bought bare root. I need to find homes for these somewhere in my yard. And then these are some specialty daylilies. These are, as well as this whole row. I have a friend that has a backyard nursery and she has a ton of beautiful daylilies. So I bought them pretty cheap and I want to wait till they bloom so I can see what they look like and then place them in my landscape. This came from my mother-in-law's and it's a Artemisia. I love the silvery foliage. It's a nice mounding type plant. And then this I winter sowed. It's a flax and it's a blue color. I got that from my sister-in-law's, and the seeds from my sister-in-law's. These all came from my friend that has a backyard nursery, and some sort of little grass. I don't know what this plant is. Um, and then a little pink blossoming strawberry plant. These are from my landscape. They were just divided up, and I love this one. These are all Jacob's ladder, but this has a nice variegated leaf to it. They almost look like ferns, and again, they look great in a woodland type garden, which at least I would say 3/4 of my yard is. Pretty much this whole row, as well as half of this row, are the betony or the stachys that I winter sowed. And I winter sowed this, and I believe it's some sort of a mum. So I'll have to wait and see what they look like. I'm just keeping them in the ground, keeping them watered. And once things bloom, then I can move them around in my landscape. I bought this from my friend that has a backyard nursery, a mini iris. And this looks like some sort of a stilby. I'm just waiting to see their colors. And then I probably winter sowed this, and that's another lupin. Every year I treat myself to maybe 1 or 2 plants that I just must have. And I treated myself to this. This is epimedium, and it has like a pink colored flower. Quite a few of these I got from my mother-in-law's house, and I just need to find a good home for them. And they are a Annabelle hydrangea. I winter sowed a bunch of penstemon, and there's weeds in here, but you can see there's a penstemon here, there's a penstemon here, there's one right here. So there are penstemon here, and I'm pretty sure they're a blue color. And then this whole row here is pretty much things that I bought that I just wanted in my landscape. So this is the Dolce Apple Twist, and it's a type of heuchera. This over here is a Grape Expectations Coral Bells, which also is a type of heuchera. This is another one of those Centauria, and it's a Montana blue. This over here is a Earth Angel Hosta. For all I know, I might already have some of these Hosta. You know, when I go to a place and I buy them, they look so interesting to me. But I can't remember all the Hosta I have in my yard. This is a Blue Angel Hosta. This is a Island Breeze Hosta. And what I like about it is, look at the red petioles, I think they call it. This is the Age of Gold Hosta. Over here, we have a Guardian Angel Hosta. And then a Brother Stefan Hosta. It looks like this, but check out the picture. So my goal is, I definitely want to move out some of the plants that are in this bed that I'm not keeping, that I'm selling, like all these betony. I definitely need to move them out and make room for other plants that I want to put in my holding bed that are just for me. We have another poppy that I bought bare root. I don't know the name of this plant. I feel like it's a creeping Charlie, and I need to look it up a little more. I don't want it to be invasive in my landscape, but I did buy it from my backyard gardener friend. I want to use these in some of my pots that I'm going to do for my summer arrangements. When I give plants, I use these trays here. They're actually pretty narrow. They are not your traditional 10 by 20 tray. So instead of throwing them away, I rather just give them to people when they buy plants from me. So that's what I've been using for my plant sale. A lot of people, when they come over and they look at this bed, they go, oh my goodness, I really am glad that we came up with this idea to hold over my flowers and my plants. And there are definitely some other plants that I know I want to already put in here, but I'm not going to put them in here until I sell some more plants. I think I have 4 or 5 more people coming over the next few days. So I really need to move things out and make room for those plants that are in my milk jugs. I hope this inspired you, gave you some ideas. And if you have any questions about being a backyard nursery, please ask. I'm still learning, I'm still researching, but so far this has been working for me. Until I see you in the next video, make it a great day with gardening.